What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? We have made it. In 2 days' time, we have college football on our televisions. Now, we're not all the way back. We're only about halfway back because it is week 0. It's just a few games, really one main game of note, that being Kansas State, Iowa State in Dublin, Ireland at noon on ESPN. But there are 4 other games. There's a Idaho State versus a UNLV, if that's something, if you're just a sicko and want to watch that. Fresno State, Kansas, I think is a solid, might be a sneaky fun game. Sam Houston, Western Kentucky's whatever. Stanford, Hawaii could be a fun late night one. But really, it's that Kansas State, Iowa State game that we want to pay attention to in Dublin, Ireland here in 2 days. So, let's talk about the game. Let's talk about who I think will win. Let's talk about implications. It's a very important game, ironically. This is probably one of the most important week 0 games we've had. I mean, we had Florida State, Georgia Tech last year, which everyone thought like Florida State, Georgia Tech, they'll play well, but Florida State will win. It ended up being a massive upset and sent Florida State on a downward spiral for the rest of the season. But this game, both teams in Big 12 title contention, in my opinion, this season, both teams want to start off on a great note. And whoever wins this game, they have so much momentum in the Big 12, and they're in the front row seat. All right, they're in the driver's seat for the Big 12 for the rest of the season. Okay, so before I'll say who I think is going to win after I kind of analyze this. Okay, but let's talk about the thing that's going to matter the most in this game, and that's the quarterback duel. Okay, Kansas State has Avery Johnson, as we know, had him last year, and Iowa State has Rocco Becht, who they also had last year. Avery last year was Avery Johnson's first start. He had his struggles, but he also he had some high points. He really struggled throwing the football, unfortunately. But, it's a game like, what's a great example? It's a game like we saw against Arizona on September. Was that September? Yes, on September 13th. That I think showed how special Avery Johnson could be, where he had over 100 rushing yards. It was the only time he had over 100 rushing yards in the season. He had also a 60% completion percentage, 156 yards passing, which is nothing special, but he also had 2 passing touchdowns, 0 picks. That is the special part about Avery Johnson. Or the game against West Virginia in mid-October last year. He didn't have any carries, but that was a great day throwing the football for him. 3 touchdowns, no picks, 298 passing yards, 65% completion percentage. Like, that's what we want to see from him. Okay? Like, that is what we need to see. Not the game against Houston, a bad Houston team in early November that they lost, where you only have a 59% completion percentage, 1 passing touchdown with 2 picks, only 18 rushing yards. That's not what we want to see. Or the game against Arizona State, where 0 passing touchdowns, 2 picks. The game against BYU, 0 passing touchdowns, 2 picks. Like, that's the stuff we cannot see. Ironically, in 3 of the 4 games that they lost, Avery Johnson threw 2 interceptions. What that should tell you is that when Avery Johnson plays bad, this team cannot win. That's what it should tell you. Okay? In this game against Iowa State last year was the only game where that didn't happen. He actually played solid against Iowa State. He had 3 passing touchdowns, no picks, but He only had a 42% completion percentage. He did have 64 yards rushing, but they lost that game. And all the other ones that they lost, 2 interceptions. You should not be losing to a team like Houston. You were a better team than Houston last year. A way better team than Houston last year. So Avery Johnson, we need to see the step forward. I believe that it's possible from him because there were flashes. There really were. Now on the other side, Rocco Becht with Iowa State. He's more of your kind of prototypical quarterback, right? But even Rocco Becht at Iowa State, they had some just confusing losses. A loss to a Kansas team who struggled last year. Struggled. Now, it wasn't necessarily his fault. He threw for 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 65% completion percentage, almost 400 yards passing. The Iowa State defense let him down. They lost a game to Texas Tech, a team they were significantly better than last year, and this was back-to-back weeks in early November. Threw for 299 yards, 57% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. It's just confusing. He throws a lot less interceptions than Avery does because he is a better thrower of the football. But the defense of Iowa State, I think, really let them down last year. But Rocco Becht, I think, is a very good quarterback. And I think he's just overall, I think he's a really good player for a team like Iowa State. Now, my concern with a team like Iowa State is, does the defense take a step forward? And more importantly, what happens when you have now lost your 2 best weapons at receiver? You lost Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, both to the Texans, ironically. You lost both of them. Who is going to step up? Is it going to be a guy like Xavier Townsend? Is it going to be a guy like Chase Sowell? Who's it going to be? Ironically, I'm looking at their depth chart on defense. This is very off topic. Did you know they have a nose tackle whose last name is Orange? And they have a linebacker whose last name is Bacon? And a defensive tackle whose last name is Hawk. I just think that's kind of funny. When I play college football 26, I won't lie. I try and get great players on my team, but if you have a cool name like their linebacker, Caleb Bacon, yeah, you're on my team. You have to be. You have to be on my team. That was completely off topic. I apologize, but I just saw that and I had to mention it. Who do I think wins the game? I've gone back and forth, and I'm not going to lie. I thought I knew who I was going to pick coming into this before I pressed record. And then I've started looking over the stats, looking at the depth charts, and really started talking this out. And feel like I'm starting to I'm still wavering on who I want to pick. But I feel like I have to go with a prediction I made in the preseason when I did the Big 12 preview. And I feel like I have to go with what I feel in my gut here. And I think Kansas State wins. I think that Iowa State has the better quarterback and might have the better offense in general, but I think Kansas State has the better defense. I think Kansas State has the better head coach. I think Kansas State has the better running back, by the way. Good old Dylan Edwards, who transferred last year to Kansas State from Colorado. He's a good player, very good player. And that just makes me swing to Kansas State. I kind of just go over things in my head. I'm like, okay, who has home field advantage? Well, there is no home field advantage here. They're in Dublin, Ireland. Okay. Who has better quarterback? Well, that's Iowa State, which is very important. Who has better offense in general? probably Iowa State, but I don't think it's by that much. Okay. Who has the better running back? I would say that's Kansas State. Okay, who has a better defense? I would also say that's Kansas State. Who has a better head coach? I would also say that's Kansas State. And it's just those things together just make me believe that Kansas State's going to win this game. I picked them to be in the Big 12 championship in my Big 12 preview to face Texas Tech, and so I got to stick with that, and I got to continue to go with Kansas State because I believe in them. Although I believed in them last year, I picked them to make the Big 12 championship last year. They let me down, although they were close, but they let me down. But this year, I think they will prove me right this time. But I could be completely coping. Um, do we want to look at any of these other games? Idaho State versus UNLV. It'll be interesting to see Dan Mullen's debut with UNLV, but I'm not really interested in watching that game, especially because there's just better options. I think Fresno State Kansas is the second best game um, on this Saturday slate, if that's what you want to call it. 6:30 on Fox. Um, Kansas better not lose. That's all I gotta say about that. Kansas better not lose. Um, Kansas was a team that I think we all had high hopes for last year, and they just kind of, I mean, not kind of, they were bad. They were bad. They were inconsistent as well, which didn't help. But you're bringing back Jalen Daniels. He'll be a redshirt senior this year. This will be his third year starting, I think. We need to see improvement. We need to see improvement from Jalen Daniels. We need to see him play a full season, and we need to see him develop as a thrower of the football. And you cannot start the season losing to Fresno State. As good as Fresno State is not an easy, group of 6 team to play. They're not easy, but you should beat them. Kansas is good enough to beat them. So you need to go out there and beat them. Stanford, Hawaii is interesting. I don't know. I just don't know what to think of Stanford anymore. I really don't. They lost David Bailey, their edge rusher. They lost a quarterback to Auburn. They're starting Ben Gulbranson at quarterback. Never even heard of him. Legit. Does it say where he transferred from? Oregon State. He came from Oregon State. What were his career stats? Last year, 2024 at Oregon State, he went 78 for 128. So he clearly didn't play in every game, obviously. 60% completion percentage. He had 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Don't love that. 943 yards passing, almost 1,000 yards. It's just... So he played against Boise State. So he played towards the end of the season for Oregon State. He played against Cal. He played against San Jose State. See, this is what worries me. You're going into a game against Hawaii, a group of 6 team that frankly isn't very good. Well, last year you played San Jose State, or he played San Jose State while he was at Oregon State. A group of 16 that wasn't very good last year. 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Yikes. But look, I think Stanford has potential. I like their running back, Micah Ford. I don't really like much else, to be frank. But we're just going to have to see. We're gonna have to see. I would love. Trust me, I would love to see Stanford roll on out there Saturday night and just stomp Hawaii. I would love to see it. Do I think that's what's going to happen? Of course not. Of course not. I think it'll be a close game for 3 quarters, and then maybe Stanford pulls away in the fourth. Because I did have Stanford as my worst team in the ACC for this upcoming season, so you could probably have expected that. I don't see them very highly. Look, let's talk about next week. I think next week will be my last week of just one episode a week. Because I don't need 2 episodes to go over what happened in week 0 plus go over week 1. I don't need 2 episodes for that. That can be 1 episode, but then after week 1, I'll go back to my usual 2 episodes a week, I think, because we will need that for sure. But week 1, I'm super excited. Super excited. How about I do this? My top 5 most anticipated week 1 games. Let's see. I have an idea. So obviously Texas Ohio State is 1. LSU Clemson is 2. That's a no-brainer. I think that should be everyone's 1 and 2 personally. I would say Notre Dame Miami is 3. Those are all the top 10 matchups right there. What are the other 2, though? And you have a lot of great options. This week 1 slate is really good. It's really good. I mean, TCU North Carolina is interesting. Virginia Tech South Carolina is interesting. You could even say Utah UCLA is interesting with Nico. Let's see. What do I want to go with here? Do I want to see? I would go Alabama, Florida State, but I think Alabama's going to annihilate them. I just think they're going to get dominated. Syracuse, Tennessee is an interesting one. Okay, I know my 4th, and this is going to come out of left field here. I think my 4th is Auburn, Baylor, because I said this before, and I'll say it again. Auburn, Baylor is such an important game for both teams, especially Auburn. I think Auburn needs to win. I almost think they have to win it. And it's almost crazy to say that, a Friday night game, week 1, but that's what I believe. I think Auburn has to win it. I think Hugh Freeze is in a lot of trouble if they don't win that game. So I think he has to win it. Nebraska Cincinnati is a little interesting. It's a little interesting. It's slightly interesting. At 5, man, there's such good options. I think I'm going to go Syracuse, Tennessee. I think that Tennessee has the potential to be in for a rude awakening against Syracuse in Atlanta, by the way. And I legit might pick Syracuse in that game. People are not giving Syracuse enough credit in this game. Tennessee better watch out. That's all I'm going to say. They better watch out because Fran Brown and Syracuse is not playing anymore. They're not playing. They are here to dominate. But just to give some respect to some other games, Georgia Tech, Colorado, I heavily considered putting at 5 here. I think that is such an interesting game, especially with it being at Colorado. I think that a lot of people are correct in assuming that Colorado is going to take a major step back this year. I believe they'll take a major step back this year without Shedeur and without Travis Hunter. But they have a chance to prove to Georgia Tech is a good football team. They're a good football team. So Colorado has the potential to really show us week 1 on a Friday night that, this program, we're here to stay. We're here to compete with Dion at the helm. And they get a great chance against a good Georgia Tech team. I talked about Alabama, Florida. I just think Alabama's going to just annihilate them and stomp them into the ground. Let's see. I think Utah and UCLA is interesting because this is hopefully for Utah's sake going to be a real bounce back year for them. Kyle Whittingham needs it to be a bounce back year, and UCLA is looking to actually be competent with because now they actually have a competent quarterback in Nico, and it's going to be interesting to see how Nico looks week one on this new UCLA team. But I think Utah is so much more talented than them. Virginia Tech, South Carolina. I think people are overhyping South Carolina a little. When you really think about South Carolina, specifically the offense, you understand that they have Lenore Sellers, who, in my opinion, is a top 3 SEC quarterback, probably a top 5 quarterback in the country, if we're being honest. I think Lenore Sellers is phenomenal. But it's everything around him. You don't have Raheem Sanders anymore at running back. Can you name a wide receiver not that's outside of Nick Harbor? And Nick Harbor is largely all hype, no production. Just saying. But I think, and there's a Virginia Tech team who's also looking to bounce back. They were the darlings of last year in the preseason last year. Everyone was like, this team, they're coming. They could win the ACC, and then they just were, frankly, bad. So that's an interesting matchup. TCU, North Carolina. I mean, look, this is all Bill Belichick. This is all Bill Belichick. And I was so confident that I was going to pick North Carolina leading into the season. And now I'm really starting to doubt myself because Hoover at TCU is a good quarterback. He's a good quarterback, man. But then again, I like Gio Lopez at North Carolina. It's just that North Carolina defense is just atrocious. It's atrocious, which makes me worried, but I don't know. But I hope everyone has a great Saturday, a great week 0. I hope everyone's excited. I know I am. I'm ready for week 1 next weekend. Go out there, enjoy some football, and don't forget to be great.